Now, the difference between what happened on the Costa Concordia, though, and what happened on the Titanic is leadership. So infamously, the captain of the Costa Concordia ends up abandoning ship before the passengers are even off. One of the first off. In fact, the Italian Coast Guard sends him back on the ship.
Exactly. They recognized him ashore and said, "Aren't you the captain?" And they forced him back on board via the ship.
Right. He's like, your ship is sinking. People are dying. Get back on and do your job. Unfortunately, he's in prison now for that, or at least he was. I don't know if he's, where he deserves to be. Now, the captain of the Titanic, it wasn't Captain Smith's fault that they hit the iceberg. It was the company's fault for trying to get them to set a new speed record through the North Atlantic and ignoring the iceberg warnings that were out there, which maybe Captain Smith had some role in that last part. But when the incident happened and when it was finally brought to his attention, I mean, he became the classical model of maritime leadership. He literally went down with the ship and was the last person on the bridge, made sure that not only did as many of the passengers could get away as could, but that the crew was getting off too. And in fact, there's some dispute about his fate, but several of the survivors claim that the last they saw him was holding two infants, one in each hand, trying to keep their heads above water as he was kicking, to keep his own head above water. Didn't even get into a lifeboat. Yeah. And, so there's two very different models of leadership under crisis there.
Very, isn't it? And one of the things on the Costa Concordia in the post-mortem, sadly it wasn't a pre-mortem, was when they interrogated all the crew, they were all aware of this issue with the captain.
Yeah, he'd done it before.
He'd done it
before. It was how he got dates.
Several times. Yeah, it was his party piece. And talked about what we were saying about earlier about silence, and a great quote from Dr. Jordan Peterson is that, if you have something to say, silence is a lie. And tyranny feeds on lies. I love that. If you've got something to say, then silence is a lie, ... and tyranny feeds on lies. And that captain was a tyrant.
Yeah.
He was a tyrant, he was a bully, and he got away with it because nobody called it out. Nobody raised that as a concern. And we see this often in all incidents never just happen because of one thing. There's normally a chain of events, and each chain link weakens, and then one eventually breaks. But when you look at the aftermath, you'll go back and identify multiple chain links that any one of those had been called out at any point along that line, the incident wouldn't have happened.
Right.
And that's the problem. But somebody chose to remain silent or sweep it under the carpet or cover something up or keep it in their little group. And because of doing that, something further downrange exploded and caused often fatal disasters.
Well, and that's why you hear so much talk today about psychological safety in organizations, is there's a recognition that you have, if you want to be a successful organization, and it doesn't matter if you're a business, if you're the RAF, if you're an ocean liner, you have to have you have to create the psychological safety necessary for people to speak up, and if they see something, to say something. And that's why a lot of the red team thinking tools are designed to create psychological safety where none exist. But the hope is, and what we've seen happen with most of the companies that we work with, most of the organizations we work with, is that when people see the benefit of people speaking up, then you don't need to kind of artificially create that psychological safety. They want more of that.
You see that because you see the value. You all think, we've all got our own biases of people. If Bryce is in the room, I don't want Bryce speaking up because he's going to make me look stupid, so I don't want Bryce to talk. Or every time Bob opens his mouth, he doesn't stop talking, therefore no one else gets to speak. But when you use these tools and techniques, as you said, when you create psychological safety, which you do, you physically create that capability within the room. And then once you hear that there are 10 different outputs from 10 different people, who it comes from, you don't know and you don't care, but you see the quality. And then when you reveal that thing that Bob normally goes on about came out of absolute gold, that was Bob, and you go, oh, wow, hang on, Bob's got some actually good stuff in him when he's thinking. Because normally he's not thinking, he's just engaging system one and blah, blah, blah. But if you give people that opportunity in a safe space to think and engage properly regarding the context of what we're having a discussion about or outcomes we're trying to achieve, once that happens and people see the value, it starts to breed. It starts to multiply. People want more of it. And I'll stop and
Becomes a
pause for Bob
virtuous
to
cycle.
speak. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's so, so powerful. And we talk about trust. That starts to then foster trust. You don't have to earn trust. That literally happens by default of those mechanisms and those behaviors evolving in the group. And that's how you start to get high-performing teams, by enabling people to speak up, to bring themselves to work, but anonymously. And also by doing anonymous work, we prevent the biases that we all know we're impacted by. And over time, all those things start to manifest. But if you're still using this anonymity, you're not having the biases, but people then speaking up afterwards confidently saying, hey, that was my idea. And nobody's going, well, it wasn't my idea. I don't like that. You start to get that real, what do we call it today? Not groupthink, a group of thinkers, which is absolutely key.